Welcome to Call to Post, the Off the Bench Podcast Network feature dedicated to thoroughbred racing. Hosting today's show will be Brandon Ferst, and Brandon will be joined by Raider Jim Martinez. Grab some paper, make some notes, enjoy yourselves. Let's talk thoroughbred racing. Riders up.
What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for the original Call to Post. Here, our thoroughbred racing podcast on the network. To break it all down with me is my co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find him at Raider Jim 1090. Mr. Martinez, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's Thursday afternoon. We got a real barn burner coming up on Saturday, which we will talk about. But what a great day for racing. And I noticed that I'm getting emails in from Breeders' Cup. I'm getting emails in from Del Mar. So it looks like things are just going to progress right along, and can't wait.
Exactly. It's closer and closer. Obviously, we still have 3 or 4 or 5 months to get through. But in terms of the situation we're dealing with, the more time, the better, because I think it gives it a little more time to either open up or become safer or whatever it is. Hey, fine. No big deal. November, that sounds like a perfect time to be out there. I'll tell you what, though, the summer at Del Mar, hopefully we'll be able to get out there as well. Won't be Breeders' Cup style, but it'll definitely be a great return to the track. And returning to the track is two beasts of horses. We will get to the Apple Blossom later. It's kind of like, look, we got through the last 3 months or whatever. Not saying it was a grind or anything, but there were a lot of horses breaking down, or we broke down a lot of horses, I should say, as we get ready for the Derby. After we're done with all that, we've kind of finished that up. This Apple Blossom is kind of like our treat. Like I said, we will get to that in a moment. But before we do, it is time to recap the final races of the Kentucky Derby prep season. And it was first in the Lexington Stakes, a very interesting, very big upset. It was King Fury, a horse that I kind of touched on a little bit in last week's podcast. It was paying out at 34 or 38, 40, 1880, and 1020. Unbridled Honor, another long shot, comes in, pays $15 and $8. And Star in My Dreams pays a very healthy $5.80 to show. And this was a wide open race, obviously paying that type of money. And it's the perfect kind of microcosm for how this Derby prep season has gone. There have been some massive numbers on the board, and 38-40 might not even be in the top 5 if I'm just thinking going back between the Oaks and the Derby prep races.
Correct.
But what were your thoughts in terms of the Lexington Stakes? I believe this was only 20 points and 10 points. So not, the immediate entry in, but definitely a nice win for King Fury.
Right, and every point you get is a boost, and you boost your chances to make it. And this, at the end of that one, when you looked up at the tote board and saw what the numbers were, all I could see was that old picture that I've walked and seen too many times, where you're walking from the window back to the place where you're standing in the infield, and it's littered with tickets because everybody who knew they had the sure bet just let them drop at the end of it. I mean, that was wow. It was kind of a stunner for me. I think I had one of them slated, but certainly not the first 2 horses. I did not.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to pull up just to kind of give me an idea of who was in that. Yeah, Proxy was definitely the one that was. I think we all kind of expected to definitely perform a lot better. And then even Swiftsure was up there. It was a very wide open race.
In there, it was Bezos, and also my favorite for the upset of the day was going to be Hockey Dad, and Hockey Dad did nothing.
Yeah. So very, very interesting there. The Lexington Stakes. King Fury brings home 20 points. Here in a little bit, we will kind of break down where the final standings are for the Derby. Nothing set yet, but the standings are, at least in terms of that. Moving on to the final 100-point, really the final big prep Derby race, and it was the Arkansas Derby. And we got this one wrong. Like, I think probably 95% of people, we expected Concert Tour to run away with it. And it would be, look, we talked about Caddo River, we talked about Super Stock, but not in that order for sure, as it was Super Stock coming in to win the Arkansas Derby. Once again, another healthy payout, 2640 to win, 680 to place, 280 to show. Caddo River comes in second, pays 420 and 210. And Concert Tour, the horse that we both expected to win, comes in third and pays 210. For me, Super Stock was definitely a horse to keep an eye on, but I do remember last week it was trying to kind of find out who was going to come in second or even third, because we did kind of talk about Caddo River, and Caddo River ran the race that we expected him to, just didn't think it would be Super Stock who would be in front of Caddo River. Concert Tour, if it decides to, it will be Kentucky Derby eligible. It has enough points, but not a incredible run for a horse that I think we both expected to be a top 3 pick going into the Derby. Might still be, but this is going to a little bit of a chink in the armor. But what are your thoughts on Concert Tour and the Arkansas Derby?
A race like this makes me feel real good, and I'll tell you why. Because if you go back and read a week's worth of the press and the prognostications from all the professionals who are paid to do what you and I are doing, I would tell you you're going to get 90% across the board. Concert Tour is the horse to beat. Nobody's going to beat Concert Tour. Concert Tour, just give him the wreath, because he's going to win. Wow, wasn't that different? Now we did have the winner on our notes last week, and it's funny because, again, if you go back and read the press beforehand, there are 1 or 2 times where they interviewed Stephen Asmussen, and he said, no, we're ready to go, and this horse is going to take care of business. And it's like, well, there you are. Maybe you ought to just listen to the guy who's really working with that horse and see what he's got going on. And again, great trainer. So I'm really not surprised that it put on the show that it did. But I think more surprising was what Concert Tour did not do.
Definitely.
And I'm sure for Bob Baffert, it was shocking.
Yeah. Obviously, you want to try and find an answer. You don't want that answer to be anything, look, I kind of go back, and I don't like to bash horses or whatever, but kind of for me, the head scratcher of last summer, last fall was Art Collector. So it's a horse that was going to be right there with the Derby favorites. And it seemed to take a little bit of a knock and then just kind of declined. I'm not saying that's what's going on with Concert Tour, but this was a race we both talked about that, look, this is Concert Tour's race to win. There's definitely some quality here, but Concert Tour is a legitimate Derby candidate, and it still might be the case. But you watch the Arkansas Derby, it's going to be a little difficult. It'll be interesting for me to see what this does for the odds, or what this did for the morning line odds, because I still am definitely going to keep an eye on Concert Tour. This is a horse that can still compete at this level,
by all means,
100%. And how does that affect the money line? Because as we get in, we're going to talk right now about the Oaks and the Derby in terms of where the standings are. And both of these races are kind of similar in the way that you have kind of 1 or 2 or 3 contenders, and then it's kind of wide open. I mean, you could make a case for, only 1 or 2, or you could make a case for 10, depending on how you deal with things, because of kind of the craziness of the prep season. And it was a perfect little end to it with the Arkansas Derby, with everybody kind of expecting, okay, this is the time Concert Tour shows what Concert Tour is supposed to do. And here comes, Super Saver, or Super Stock, excuse me. And just kind of once again flips the table over one last time.
And even the week before with the big payout, and then weeks before that with Wayburn, I mean, every time we thought there was going to be, this guy's going to definitely get the 40 that are available, the 100 that are available, and it's out of the blue. And so, yeah, you're right. The point standings are all of a sudden, it's not that 'tis the law big cushion that you saw last year.
Definitely. It's going to, I think, be a interesting race. Obviously, it's always very interesting races, but very interesting to see where the morning lines come out at, and then where they go when the public is let loose, if you will,
Right.
on Derby Day or Oaks Day. But it's a perfect little prelude to get into the final standings for the Kentucky Oaks. As I'll go through the top 10 right now. At the top is search results with 150 points, travel column 132, crazy beautiful in third with 128, Pauline's Pearl in fourth with 120, Malathot at 110 in fifth place, Soothsay with 100 points in sixth place, Clairiere in seventh with 94 points, Beautiful Gift in eighth with 90, Will's Secret with 80, and then Millefew with 44 points in 10th place. Obviously, plenty to go down, obviously. But in terms of those top 10, which horses jump out to you?
You know, I'm a big fan of Pauline's Pearl. I have been every time I've seen her run. So I'm going to go with Pauline's Pearl to finish in the money on that. But I mean, search results is just the hands down should run away with this one. But if you look at those top 6 horses, even the top 7, because I'll put Clairiere in there, that's a field right there. And wow, I mean, where do you really put your money on that one? It's hard to really just say this search result. It's going to be a lot of money to win a little bit of money, if that's the way you're going to go on the gambling side of it. Travel column, same thing. Now, travel column and search results could be a real match race down the stretch, but I do think Pauline's Pearl is going to do a great showing in the Kentucky Oaks, which we're just 3 weeks away now. 3 Fridays away. So that's going to be exciting. And Beautiful Gift maybe, but I like Clairiere. I like Pauline's Pearl, search results, and travel column. Those would be my top 4.
I'm agreeing on those. I'm actually with Beautiful Gift. That's kind of where I am, where you are with Clairiere. I am with Beautiful Gift. I've liked what we've seen from this horse in terms of at least consistency. Hasn't been dominant. I mean, search results is more than likely, as it should be, the morning line favorite. Like you said, probably a pretty short price for that. Crazy Beautiful right there, and Beautiful Gift are 3 that definitely jump out to me. Travel column, I'm unsure just in terms of how much. I believe right now, just kind of looking through, I believe it has the most money earned, at least definitely at the top 11 that I'm just kind of rolling through. I hope I don't fall into a little bit of a trap in terms of, the race that it came down to. This is a horse that's won kind of the bigger named races. I don't want to fall into that recency bias, but it's going to be very interesting once again to see where the lines come out and where they go. And mainly the draw. The draw's always a very interesting one.
Yes.
All these horses have game plans. They all know, hey, I'm really going to be, a horse that needs to get on the rail. And for the most part, you'll be okay, but we're talking about both these races, 20 horses. So you might be number 1 with 19 kind of bearing down on you, or you're number 20 where you got to get on your horse, yes, pun intended, and get on the wire, get ready for the turn. It's not one of these prep races where, hey, maybe what we had 1-2 weeks ago where there are only four runners. That will not happen in the Kentucky Derby. So very interesting to see which of these horses actually enter, and then where they go with the draw, because a lot of these horses have to change their game plan, or the jockeys, I should say, will have to change their game plan depending on that.
Yeah, rail's good depending on who your jockey is and how your horse performs right out of the gate. If you have to drop back, go to your right, start going, trying to find a spot to go a little bit wide and then pull back in, or go a little bit wide and find your opening, that's a lot of work. And it's just like you see in a regular track meet. Why does the guy on the inside lane, people call that maybe an advantage lane? Well, because they're right there. And unless, if you get into the mile races and things like that, when everybody can converge, you see a lot of, clipping of heels and things like that in the track and field world. And with this, it's the same type of thing, because, you've got these 1,000-pound animals that are playing Frogger with one another. So it's going to be interesting to see. And you're absolutely right. Draw could be everything in this one.
Yeah. And moving on to the Kentucky Derby, obviously, the main one, right? At Churchill that weekend, all the 3-year-old horses getting their chance to really get ready to run for the traditional Triple Crown this year. Last year, of course, the Kentucky Derby was the final race. This one a little bit back to normal with the first jewel of the Triple Crown being awarded at the Kentucky Derby. One thing that jumped out to me before I go through the top 10 is we've seen two, and I'll go back to the Oaks as well. A bunch of upsets. Whole Bodymeister, Wayburn, a couple others. I didn't say those horses. I won't bring up Wayburn here. Those horses, I would assume, the jockeys, the connections have said thank you, but no thank you. They've been pulled off of the standings. It's what we saw with Greatest Honor. Greatest Honor was in the top 10. It announced that it for 60 days was going to go on a rest, therefore wasn't going to be able to run in the Derby. So it was pulled off of that, off of the board. So just something to think about, and something that caught my eye when I kind of looked through them. I was trying to, find, where's Wayburn? Where's Whole Bodymeister? What kind of crazy odds are we going to see? Well, they won't be heading to Churchill, at least for these races. But for the Kentucky Derby, the top 10 final standings are as follows. The out-and-out favorite, Essential Quality, 140 points. Hot Rod Charlie, 110 in second place. Super Stock in third with 109. Like the King in fourth with 104. Known Agenda, 102, sits in fifth. Rock Your World and Bourbonic will sit at sixth and seventh, both with 100 points. Medina Spirit with 74. Concert Tour, as we just talked about, sits in ninth with 70. And Midnight Bourbon sits in 10th with 66. For me, I have a couple horses. Obviously, look, Essential Quality is the horse, is the quality of this race. We saw it in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It was essentially kind of whoever wins that race, you expect them to be an early favorite for the Derby. Essential Quality went out, won that race, hasn't really, looked back since. And two other ones that I'm going to bring up, Medina Spirit, maybe expected a little bit more in the prep race season, still will do enough to get into this race. And one horse that I've just found, I've fallen in love with really the last 4 or 5 months, just because it seems to always be in there and make me some money in an either place show ticket. And it's Midnight Bourbon. Midnight Bourbon is a horse. I don't know if it's going to win, but it's going to run its tail off. And if you get the right number for it, a place show bet might be better than a winning bet from Midnight Bourbon, if more than likely Essential Quality does what we all expect it to do. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the top 10 or anyone else that's in this group of 25, really?
Yeah, a couple things here. Essential Quality, the $2 million horse. I mean, that horse has already banked 2.2 million in purse winnings, and again, cream of the crop. However, I will say, and I was, thank my lucky stars, when Rock Your World ran a couple weekends ago, and I started looking at the lines and started looking at the results, past results and things. It's like, I'm sorry that it pencils out. This horse should win, and this horse won. That horse is going to make noise at the Kentucky Derby, and I can't wait to see Rock Your World. If there was going to be an upset horse, it's going to be Rock Your World. Now, probably going to go off somewhere in an 8 to 10 to 1, which I'm fine with that because I will probably have a few bucks on it. But I look for Essential Quality. Hard to not just take those top 4. Top 5 and just say, yeah, there you are. There's your first 4 finishers. But as we all know, that's not how it works in thoroughbred racing. So I think we do have a hands down favorite with Essential Quality. After that, wide open. And again, draw is going to be key there. One thing of note, because we talked about Wayburn and Whole Bodymeister, who have decided to not run. Interestingly enough, Caddo River will probably not accept an invitation to the Derby. And I don't know if you've seen any of that press or not. There is the owner, John Ed Anthony, out of the Short Leaf Stables, and used to be out of Loblolly Stables back in the day. he has said that that Shortleaf will probably never run Derby races again because it's just not worth it. And you kind of go, wow, I thought that's what all these guys were going for. And then when you read his reasonings why, and he said the toy, and these are his remarks. He said that it's almost unrealistic and the expectation that they place on these 3-year-old horses to go out and do 3 races in 5 weeks the way that they do is just not worth it. And his case is in point. He had a horse in 1987, Demons Be Gone, that was supposed to be, the hands down favorite in the Derby, and ended up, did just didn't do it, couldn't do it. And then in 1993, he had a horse, Prairie Bayou. Prairie Bayou was upset in the Derby by Sea Hero, ended up winning the Preakness. In the Preakness race, Union Bay had to be euthanized. Now, Union Bay was like 80-1, went off at 80-1. But the rigors of the training and the race and get them in there and guys putting them in. And he kind of alluded to the fact, some guys put their horses in there just to say we did it. And Union Bay, that could have been the case. Prairie Bayou went on to run at the Belmont, and if you can, the film is still on YouTube. But Mike Smith was the jockey, and Mike Smith actually had to jump off the horse. Horse goes down. That horse had such severe leg injury. Now, our legs are constructed as such. We have our hip joint, we have our knee joint, we have our ankle joint. So if you put another joint between your hip and your knee and your ankle, that's kind of how a horse's leg goes. Below the knee, what would be our knee, there is a cannon bone in a horse, shattered. Then there are 2 hard, almost like they look like giant knuckles, which are held in place. All 3 of those shattered. They had to euthanize this poor horse. And he tried to get them. He pleaded with them, just do what you got to do, but save my horse. And this horse was a gelding, so it's not like they were putting the horse out to stud, but he just wanted the horse to be able to, bring the horse home, and was not able to do so. And he said he is very doubtful. He can't see him changing his mind, but he does not believe that Cottle River is going to be put in the Derby at this point.
Wow. So, yeah, you can't really blame, and it's always been something, ever since I've talked about, or I've, learned about the Triple Crown, things like, it wasn't just the fact that, you're better than these other horses over 3 races. It's that your horse is able to run in those 3 races. Normally you see a minimum of 3 weeks to a month before they're running again. And that's if you're on a Kentucky Derby schedule, right? Or a Breeders' Cup schedule, you're kind of looking down the road and saying, okay, we want to be running in this is our ultimate goal. So let's set ourselves up with a run here, a run there, so that when it's ready to roll, we've given 6 weeks to a month to get ready for a race. And you're essentially now saying, not only are you going to run in these races, but you're going to run in 2 of the 3 races. More than likely, whoever wins the Kentucky Derby, there was a horse that I just went through in the top 10 or even the top 15 that won't run in the Derby, but will be a factor in either the Preakness or the Belmont because of what you exactly just said. Now, look, American Pharoah, Justified. We know them because they won the Triple Crown. Guess what? We're horse racing fans. We have a bigger vocabulary. We have a bigger memory than just Triple Crown winners. Now, amazing. You're on that level. Fantastic. For me, my favorite horse of all time isn't even one of those 2 races. I mean, I love them, but for me, it was Zenyatta. Zenyatta was the horse that got me into horse racing in terms of I want to learn about every single horse that I can. And for these horses, like you said, it is, for the casual horse racing fan, you ask them, name me one horse race, anything, even a track. And they don't live in San Diego. If you live in San Diego, they'll say Del Mar because it's so well known. But you just ask a casual sports fan, or a horse racing fan to name me a race or a track, they will say Kentucky Derby 9 times out of 10.
Right.
And
Correct.
it's not even close to one of the highest paying races in the country. I don't even know if it's the highest paying Triple Crown race, honestly. I mean, there's definitely money to be made and there's plenty of prestige, but I could not agree more with what that trainer said. I don't know if saying it's not worth it is correct, because look, it is the Kentucky Derby, it is the Super Bowl, but it's similar to saying we're going to play the Super Bowl, and you're going to have to play 3 games in a row, and if you don't win all 3, nobody's declared Super Bowl. Right. And it's just like, wait a second, that's not. They're not built for that. And I don't even know if they're built for the 6-week break or the month break that they're given. And it is sad. And I understand, I always get the, when I work, when I work at Islands, my bartending gig, and I say, oh, I tell my manager, yeah, I'm a little tired. They say, oh, you're too young to be tired. First of all, I am no longer too young to be tired, but I thank you for the nod. But it's kind of like, oh, well, they're 3-year-olds. They can take it. Well, says who? Right. Says who that these animals, that maybe some of them, this is their 5th, 6th, and 7th races, and they took all year, the last 18 months to get 4 races under their belt, and now you want them to race 3 in 5 weeks. I do think it asks a bit much, and I think that's a big reason why we haven't seen a Triple Crown. Luckily, there hasn't been a big breakdown. Fortunate. I mean, obviously, you said Union Bay. That was, you don't ever want to hear a story like that. But definitely don't want to see that play out in this climate, because all eyes are on the Derby.
And I believe the story with his 87 horse, Demons Be Gone, I believe his remarks were that horse actually bled to death. The bleeding was so severe, brought on by the running. And, I've talked about that way. It's got to go back a year when we were talking about why do people use Lasix and things like that. But just and maybe between the Derby and some of the Breeders' Cups, or even before the Derby itself, it's very interesting. And people need to understand the mechanics of the horse and what happens when those 4 legs come together and then go out when they're sprinting, and what's happening to the chest cavity and the abdominal cavity. And, you would not want to take your favorite dog and ask your dog to run the way these horses do. And even when I see my dogs overexerting themselves, you try to calm them. You want to calm them. You rub their chest and their heart area. So hats off to Mr. Anthony for having the position he does. This, interestingly enough, is one of Brad Cox's entries. It would be one of the Brad Cox entries. And so he is just sitting on the sidelines waiting to be told, are we going to run him or are we not going to run him? That doesn't keep Brad Cox out of the running, because that Central Quality is also his horse. So.
Yeah, Brad Cox has a penchant for doing things like that. Just when he's got one over here, oh yeah, I lost that one, but don't worry, I have the odds-on favorite. Don't worry about it at all. And speaking of Brad Cox, as we move on to the Apple Blossom, for me, my top 2 memories, I had plenty of memories of last year's Breeders' Cup. One of my all-time favorites was how important it was to me, because it was the first time that myself and Raider Jim had done this during the Breeders' Cup. But 2 things jump out to me. First one was Nick's Go's run in the mile. It was just an absolutely incredible run. But number 2 was Brad Cox and Monomoy Girl. Monomoy Girl all the talk was about Swiss Skydiver, won the Preakness. Is it the greatest filly ever? All this stuff. And here comes Monomoy Girl, kind of looking around like, I haven't been beaten in like 3 years, but yeah, keep talking about this other horse over here. That's cool. I never raced the boys, but if I did, I'm sure I would have done a pretty good job as well. And it goes out and it dominates. Monomoy Girl continues on doing what Monomoy Girl does. And that's not the thing that I remember. The thing that I remember was Brad Cox giving an interview, and it was announced, it was the worst kept secret that the next day Monomoy Girl was going on to the auction block, and whatever owner got her next had a decision to make. And it was a decision of, do you continue to race arguably one of the greatest fillies of all time. And he wasn't sure if he was going to get a chance to do that. And in his mind, the Breeders' Cup Distaff was maybe his last chance to train and race with Monomoy Girl. And you could see the emotion, you could see the connection he had to this animal, to this athlete. And it was touching to me, because I think a lot of people just look at horse people and think, oh, they just use them for a means to an end, or, X number of dollars. And I'll be the first one to admit it. When we talk about horse racing, a lot of what we talk about is the monetary side, whether it's winning our bets or it's talking about the purses. But at the end of the day, the horses, the people that are really invested, the guys at Brad Cox wake up at 3 a.m. to go out to the track and work these horses out. That's what it was all about. It was about him, that emotion of going, I don't know if I'll be able to be a part of this team anymore. Because that's really what it is, to be a part of this championship team. And as emotional as it was, we got the news, I think 3 or 4 days later, that don't worry, it's all good. Monomoy Girl is going to continue to run. And folks, it is time for that to happen here in the Apple Blossom Cup. As I just pull up my notes, very, very few times in sport or in horse racing do we get the kind of heavyweight matchup, the match race. And once again, I don't know if this is going to be, there's 4 other horses in this race, but Monomoy Girl versus Swiss Skydiver Part 2. That's really what the Apple Blossom is all about. Once again, Swiss Skydiver, the horse that captured our attention very early on by winning the Preakness, of course, a race that I will never get tired of telling people we called. But this Apple Blossom, Swiss Skydiver versus Monomoy Girl. I'll let you start this one off. I guess I kind of already started off, but
this is one of those, to use a really overused term, but it's one of those once in a lifetime races. This is just one of those things. If you could have ever put Carl Lewis and a Usain Bolt on the track at the same time, at the same peaks of their career, this is what you're going to see on Saturday. It should be one of the two. Interesting though, I mean, Monomoy Girl right now is even money. Swiss Skydiver is 2-1, but I really like the chances that Latruska might have to go in there and ruin somebody's party. And then for Brad Cox, he also has Get Rid of What Ails You running right next door to Monomoy Girl. So he's got the 5 and the 6 slots. Latruska is going to run out of the 3, which I actually like that position in a 6-horse race. And Swiss Skydiver gets 2. Wow. I mean, just those 4 horses alone. And you've got, Kenneth McPeak is the trainer for Swiss Skydiver, Brad Cox, who we already talked about. And then Irad Ortiz is going to be riding Latruska. Wow. This is just a wow field.
I mean, Latruska's 4-1 morning line, and this is a horse that's won 12 of its 17 races. It's been in the money in 14 of its 17 races. Absolute star-packed race. I was very happy to see when I saw the post time, the 4:09 here on the East Coast, obviously approximate. What's great news there is that there's no possible way that it's going to start before 4:09. More than likely, it'll probably be a little later. We usually lose about 2 or 3 minutes throughout the running of the meet. And, the way my work schedule is on Saturday, my second bartender, the night bartender there, gets there right at 4 o'clock. So all I have to do between 4 and 4:30 is just essentially stock the bar for the night. So I already know between like 4:10, 4:20, 4:30, I'm going to sit in the corner, go sit in the back office and just turn on my TVG app and be gone for 2 minutes out of the world and watch a fantastic race. I really can't wait to see if one of those horses can sneak their way in, because as much as I sit here and I say, okay, Swiss Skydiver versus Monomoy Girl, like you said, there is still a ton of talent in this race. Obviously, Swiss Skydiver, does this horse fight back? It was a dominant performance in the, I think it was the Beholder in, let me see, that was at Santa Anita, and got the job done. And does Swiss Skydiver remember how look, let's face it, 8 lengths. Swiss Skydiver lost to Monomoy Girl in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Does that remind, or does that trigger in its head? Because I firmly believe these horses, obviously we know that they have incredible sense of smell. Does this horse kind of know, oh, there's that horse? There's that one, the only one that I've kind of looked at its rear end for a very long time.
Right.
I really expect a bounce back, or not bounce back, but a better performance from Swiss Skydiver. But this is the only horse in Monomoy Girl. Monomoy Girl is the only horse that literally can make Swiss Skydiver look like a true underdog. And it's all because of what Monomoy Girl does. This is a horse that's never finished lower than second. It's won its last 10 plus races. I can't even find when it's lost its last race. It's probably getting towards the end. I can't imagine we will see her next year. I don't even know if we'll see her towards the end. Maybe we'll see her in the Breeders' Cup Distaff again if that's the case. But it's a 6-year-old horse, already made $4.5 million. Like I said, it felt like we're already getting bonus races with this horse. And the Bayakoa was a horse, or was a race that it ran earlier, kind of a tune-up, and that was at Oaklawn, where this horse will run. And it wasn't a I mean, it won by 2 lengths. It's kind of crazy that Monomoy Girl, it only won by 2 lengths. That's kind of how Monomoy Girl is. You kind of wonder what happened there. But it'll be very interesting, because this is, I think, besides the Distaff, and then going back to, I mean, this is the 2-time defending champ of the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Those 2 races, this might be the 3rd toughest race it's ever run in terms of the field it's going up against. And it's only a 6-horse field. Really cannot wait for the Apple Blossom. But at the end of the day, even money, if you can get Monomoy Girl for even money, if you can get Monomoy Girl for 3 to 5, I think there's value there, as crazy as that is, because I don't know how you get away from this horse. This is, like I talked about Zenyatta earlier. No horse will ever be on the same level as Zenyatta for me, because that was kind of like my first love, my first horse that I really loved. Cigar, back in the day when I was really young, I remember watching it Del Mar and knowing it was undefeated up until I believe it lost. I wasn't there that day, but Zenyatta is that horse for me that got me into it. Rachel Alexandria was another filly that really kind of kept at it, and Monomoy Girl and Swiss Skydiver are the ones that have kind of continued on the filly, torch bearing, at least in terms of world-class fillies. I can't wait for this race. I think I'm honestly looking forward to this race more than the Derby or the Oaks, and a lot of that's just because of Monomoy Girl versus Swiss Skydiver and these other horses as well. I definitely shortchanged some of these horses before I looked at the numbers today, and there is some massive speed in this race.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And a lot of what we're looking at here, and the reason we might feel like we're a little more excited about this one than the 1 in 3 weekends, these are the predecessors. These are the people, these are the horses that got us excited for the Kentucky Oaks and made us want to watch the Kentucky Oaks and beyond them. And here we are, I believe Swiss Skydiver is 4 now. Monomoy Girl is 6 now. So there you are. That was a year ago and 3 years ago since we had, they were 3-year-olds. And so now we're watching the seasoned veterans. And then on Derby Day, we're going to get excited because, wow, when the Triple Crown's done, I wonder what these horses are going to do as 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
And we might see in the Oaks, we might see one of those horses become the new Monomoy Girl, because look, that's where Monomoy Girl got. I mean, this was a horse that was definitely highly expected early on, but when it won the Kentucky Oaks, it was 2.5 to 1 and got the job done. That was all the way back in 2018. It was, okay, this horse is for real. And now this horse has been the favorite in every single race since then. There have been 2 races in the last 8 that Monomoy Girl has been even money or higher. And both of them are the Breeders' Cup Distaff, which obviously, like I said, is the toughest field that she's faced in her career. I mean, she's normally going off at, 0.2 to 1. Right. It's crazy to me. And this horse continues to win. So much is expected of this horse. race in and race out, and it seems to continue to raise the bar every single time. And it will have to in this race because they're all gunning for Monomoy Girl. This is probably the last chance for some of these horses to knock off Monomoy Girl. Because like I said, I don't know how much longer we're going to get blessed with the running of Monomoy Girl. I think if we could get to Del Mar and we could get Monomoy Girl in the Breeders' Cup Distaff to go for the three-peat, wow. That is, put that in my little wish list if I ever come across a genie here in the next 4 months.
Throw that one in the suggestion box.
Yes, exactly. That will be one that's just, when I say my prayers before I go to bed, that'll be one I just remind, hey, I'm still hoping for that. But that is all I have for the Apple Blossom. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somehow, some way, one of the other horses just kind of come out of nowhere. And who knows, steal the show. But Raider Jim, anything else to add on the Apple Blossom or the final thoughts here for the Call to Post?
Apple Blossom, I think we've covered it, but about 60 minutes before the Apple Blossom, race 9, the Oaklawn Handicap. It's a grade 2 mile and an eighth. And if you want to talk about put the gloves on, it's a heavyweight fight. This is going to be a show. You will see some of the greatest, most decorated horses, thoroughbreds of our time right now. You've got Owendale, who is 15 times in the money out of 22 races. That's 6 in the winner's circle, 5 times placed, 4 times showed, has won $1.48 million in purses. It's just, you've got Silver State, you've got Warriors Charge. This is going to be a fantastic race. Again, that's race 9. It's the Oaklawn Handicap. Whoever wins that gets an automatic invite to the Pimlico Special. Now, the Pimlico Special, a little bit of race history here. It's trivia for me, and it's history for people who might remember or for people who are just starting to follow thoroughbred racing. Pimlico Special has had competitors that have gone on to get Horse of the Year in their categories, to include Mineshaft, Citation, and the horse you just mentioned, Cigar, also ran in it. Now, what's really special about the Pimlico Special is back in 1938, it hosted a match race, and the match race contenders were War Admiral and Seabiscuit. History. That is just thoroughbred racing history. So there's a lot on the line for this. And it's kind of like an all expenses paid. You win the Oaklawn Handicap, not only do you get your invite to go to that race, we're going to pay your way to go to the race. The entry fees, everything. So don't sell yourself short. Don't only tune in for the Apple Blossom. Catch that Oaklawn Handicap race 9. Probably going to go off around a 3 o'clock hour, somewhere around in there. But wow. And again, with no surprise, like we haven't talked enough about them all already. I mentioned Owendale, I mentioned Warriors Charge. Both of those horses are trained by Brad Cox. He's going to have a fantastic Saturday from the sounds of things.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in a couple more in there. Fearless, you might have brought him up, but Fearless at 7-2, Todd Pletcher and Irad Ortiz. Really, really interesting to see how that horse runs. And Express Train, the 2 horse. My goodness.
Don Charrette's horse, Express Train, is a monster.
I'm really interested to see how this horse runs on the East Coast. As far as I know, it's been Del Mar, Santa Anita for Express Train. The last 2, this is a horse that came in second in the Santa Anita Handicap, ran a 102, and then in the San Pasquale actually dominated the San Pasquale to win by over 3 lengths and put up a 103. So it's been in the 90s in 4 of the last 5 races. The only time it was on turf. So really interested to see. But yeah, Owendale, I mean, my goodness, the people at Oaklawn Park, they're going to have like you said, they're going to have a really, really fun Saturday. And I think it really kind of all ends up with that main event with that big showdown. But this is a nice one, Oaklawn Handicap. That's going to be a nice little appetizer. And it's a hell of an appetizer.
7-2. not bad for Owendale right now. If you can lock in Owendale at 7-2, Florent Giroux is going to be riding the Owendale. Wow, kind of hard to not put that as the hands down favorite in that race. But we said it, Express Train. Why, another one of those, you look, you go, wow, wow. You just keep saying, wow. You see Brad Cox, Todd Fletcher, John Sharef, Steve Asmussen. They all have, Asmussen has 2 horses. Asmussen has the rail on the outside, as a matter of fact. He's got the 1 and the 8. Okay, so there goes my Saturday afternoon.
Not a better way to lose it, I'll tell you what. And don't you worry, we'll be back next week to break it all down. But final thoughts there, Raider Jim.
No, I just, after reading Mr. Anthony's remarks about why he may not put Caddo River, it made me think back to the Horse Racing and Safety Integrity Act that we have talked about in the past. And this is a completely different reason than the Horse Racing Safety and Integrity Act. But it was nice to read these remarks, because it is nice to know that these owners, and you alluded to it, they really do care for these animals. And if you really pay attention, when they interview a jockey after a race, what'd you think? How'd you know? What about this? What about that? Oh, I could feel it. I could feel him. I could feel her. I talked to her as we were going around. And then when they get the win, and even when they don't get the win, watch the reaction jockey to horse when it's over. I mean, there's a love there. There definitely is. They go up, they pat them, they stroke them. Sometimes they put their arms around them, and definitely, it is not foreign to see the jockeys give those horses a big kiss on the nose. I mean, and that's it's me and my dogs, and those are just real big dogs that weigh 1,000 pounds. But yeah, there's definitely more than just. They're not just work partners. They are not just work partners. They are teammates. They are family members. So that was nice to read, and I just hope for safety for everybody on the track.
Definitely, and this, who knows, with maybe more. Maybe if we get a Bob Baffert, if we get a Brad Cox, if we get someone maybe a little more, the bigger box or a bigger soapbox, if you will, to kind of say, hey, let's turn these into Kentucky Derbies in May. The Preakness is in June, and the Belmont's in July. Yeah, I know it might be a little hot in July in New York, but guess what? I would rather run my horse. I think they already run it in June anyway. So I mean, what are we talking here? I mean, give these horses a little bit of a break before, hopefully, they break down. It's just not something you ever want to see, no matter what horse race we're talking about, whether it's the Kentucky Derby or optional claiming, at the lowest level. You don't want to see anything like that happen. But really something to keep an eye on. And the horses that are going to be ready to run in the Kentucky Derby, we are just a couple more weeks away from that. And I can't wait, because it's going to be absolute. And then when that gets rolling, we know when that's done, it's time for us to shift our attention, of course, to the most important Breeders' Cup of my lifetime. I'm going to call it right now, of course, where we will be, of course, at Del Mar to break it all down. Definitely doing some live streaming. Cannot wait for that. Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah, and between this week and the Kentucky Oaks, which will be our show
2 weeks.
2 Thursdays from today. So next week, what we will probably do is we'll have some, Raider Jim's going to bust out some of his trivial, history facts about where the Derby came from, where the Oaks came from, and things like that, which is very entertaining to me, and it's very enlightening to people who have never heard the stories before. So we'll cover some of that. Always plenty to talk about.
Definitely, always. And I'm sure if we get what we expect to on Saturday, that might be a whole show right there with the Apple Blossom. But make sure you check that out on Saturday. And thank you all very much for listening to the original Call to Post presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Enjoy the races. Take care.
Peace.